And so how would you sum up what this station is doing? What's the purpose of this station?
It's for measuring the water in the snow and for figuring out the timing of when that water is going to end up in the rivers. That's what the River Forecast Center is doing with the data out of here.
And why is it important?
Most of BC, most of the cities are built in low-lying areas near rivers and streams, and so pretty much all of the residential and industry and
so it's water supply for drinking water.
In BC is next to rivers, so it's for flood forecasting, for public safety, and for predicting water supply.
And is that why it's important to what's the importance of accuracy and reliability at a station like this?
Well, it could be life and death, but if there's a flood and you don't know when it's going to happen. But these are for managing the water supply too. If we flew over the reservoir on the way up here, and so they're trying to figure out how much water's up here, so they don't release too much out of there. And this is another reserve of water that's all up in the mountains that's going to end up down in the reservoir. So knowing what's happening up here helps them manage what's in the reservoir.
Is any of this data being used for climate change purposes? Are they looking at?
They're starting to do that. The snow record is an important record for climate because it's in parts of BC the precipitation is a snow-dominated precipitation. So that's how most of the water arrives in those parts of BC.
Right. So
if you want to know what's happening with the climate, you need to know how much precipitation you're getting. The sensor that's most important for that is the snow pillar, which is essentially a bladder that sits on the ground. And when snow falls on it, it squeezes liquid out of the bladder into a pipe. And we measure the height of the liquid in the pipe, and that tells us how much water is in the snow. This one is one of our most easily accessible stations, and it's about a 15-minute helicopter flight out of Nanaimo. Generally, stations are located where they won't be bothered by people, because anyone walking on the area where we're measuring the snow is going to upset the measurements. The newer stuff is much easier to use, and so configuring, installing, and figuring out what's going on with them is much, much easier than the old ones. And I would put that's nice, but the newer stuff is much more reliable too.
So did you have to make unscheduled visits just to service something about the data before?
Yeah, the older stuff, we were having problems with the reliability they were putting on us, and we'd have to go out and figure out what's going on. The helicopter flight typically costs about $800, and then there's my time to travel to the helicopter base. So a typical trip might be a couple $1,000. So you add more complexity with that, and then you've got a laptop computer you've got to maintain, and we're generally working at cold temperatures, so the batteries on the laptop computers have issues when they're down to -20, so you have to take sometimes a second battery or a second computer, and the cable to connect the laptop to the logger, you're using that at cold temperatures, so the stiffness of the cable, and you have trouble with connections. And so we've gotten rid of all of that. Now you go out there, you're just dealing with the logger, and you're dealing directly with the logger through its own interface. So it's just much more straightforward.
Was it just an inconvenience with having to bring? So it sounds like you bring a laptop, but you'd bring some redundancy as well. So
Yeah,
whether it be probably you need to bring another laptop because hard drives can fail. And
yeah, we were bringing two laptops for a while there, and even then I had experience where it was just so cold and so much trouble with the laptops. Even though they've been charged in town, they got cold on the helicopter flight out there, and everything would go dead. It's just more stuff to deal with when it's there. So you don't have that. You just come in and you have a stylus to touch the screen, and that's all you have to pack with you. There's even a stylus there hanging on a cable, so you can't even forget that.
Are there any kind of weight restrictions in the helicopter? Like, was it a financial hit to bring two redundant equipment?
Yeah, you'll see how much gear we're bringing today, and just the physical space in these helicopters, we start to push the limits, and we're pushing the weight limits too of these smaller helicopters. Want to go as small as possible just because of the cost. But then when you take a pilot, 2 passengers, and the gear that you have to take, and the fuel that we have to take to get out to these places, the helicopters we've been running sometimes, very close to the safety limit that the machine has. And so if you can cut weight out, anything you can cut out helps with that, with safety and with extending the range and saving cost. So a couple of laptops would be adding 50 pounds to the load, and that 50 pounds really can make a difference. That could allow you to either bring a battery or bring other gear that you need. It could mean bringing a safety pack or not, and whether or not you have food to last over a night if you got caught out here. So it does make a difference.
That's a good point.
Internet connectors are a big improvement. What we were using before is terminal scripts that needed a small screwdriver to get the bare wires in and out to terminate them. And with the number of sensors that we have at each of these stations, and again the generally harsh conditions we're working under, using a little jeweler's screwdriver and trying to keep all the wires straight while you swap out one logger for another, just it adds time, it adds risk of making mistakes with the wiring. That used to happen pretty often, where you could get the thing going and something wouldn't work and you got to go back over all the wiring and make sure everything's right. So with the new bayonet connectors, if you want to swap a logger out, you just grab all the connectors in, and it's probably 20 seconds you can have them all disconnected. None of the wires are going to get mixed up, and you plug them all back in. The SDI interface is nice too, because with only one exception, it doesn't really matter which port or which assignment the cables go, and the logger will take care of detecting all that stuff and sort it all out itself. You just have to double check and make sure that one of those got onto the right channel in the configuration, and other than that, it's pretty much idiot-proof, which is good for a guy like me.
Are you paying the helicopter service per hour? Like, does time mean money? If you spend less time actually at the site, does that make a financial difference?
Yeah, it does, in 2 ways. One, the less flying we do, it is billed by the hour, so the less flying we do, the better. The amount of time on the ground, if I'm there longer, there are times a year where the helicopters are busy, so the guy can't wait for us. So he'll drop us off and come back and pick us up, so right away that doubles the flying charge. So if I can get in and out of there in under an hour, that makes a difference. It's true that the older gear did have more sort of unexplained failures. That you bench test it in town and everything's working fine. You get it out to the field and it just didn't work anymore. So I don't think I've seen that at all with any of the new equipment we're using now. When the economy turned down in 2008, the government really came through with a sharp pencil and put higher increases on and things like that. So there was a lot of concern because the staff for this program was cut in half, and so reliability of the equipment and cost of getting getting out to the field and the number of people involved and all that really suddenly made a huge difference. So it's one of the reasons why the newer equipment, has let us survive that. It's something that I guess we forget about from time to time, that we are now surviving with half the staff that we had before. And anything that we can do to make things more efficient and run with fewer people has helped.
Site visit report, 36 minutes
36 minutes
in total.
And
And did you even use site visit reports with the old loggers?
it was all done on paper, all done manually.
So there's a time to actually. Would you fill it out here?
Yeah.
Well, it's still fresh in your memory, so add that on. So okay,
Yeah.
so electronic site report is done automatically for you, but total time to swap it out. It said 36 minutes.
Well, that included draining the gauge and tallying that all up and everything. So 36 from beginning to end of the visit.
Okay, and how does that compare to other loggers that you?
Well,
you
the loggers
had?
we had before, if we had that happen, I've had experience more than once where I stuck another logger in and something went wrong during the install and it didn't work, and we did it another time. But you'd be lucky to get in and out under an hour just to swap the logger.
So total end, apples to apples, would be about half an hour to 1 hour.
Half an hour to a couple of hours.
A couple of hours. Wow, that's huge. And that whole time, either, is the helicopter waiting for you at those times, or are they always taking off and waiting and just coming back?
Ideally, we get them to wait, but if we take a long time, they can't, so they have to leave and go do other business and come back, so it doubles our cost.
So I guess.
Yeah, when you do push it to a couple of hours, you're risking ending up with 2 flights instead of 1.
Right. Huh. So that's dramatic.
Yeah, it's a big cost saving.
All right.